Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video here on the Around the Slice Entertainment YouTube channel. I saw for the first time last night in my local AMC theater Fantastic Four First Steps, so I am, of course, here today to give you my full review of the film. I want to put a spoiler warning at the very beginning here because honestly, I don't really know how to talk about a movie without getting into spoilers. That's just my own personal feelings, at least to some extent, at least. So you have been warned. So I'm going to give you the positives of this film, the negatives of this film, and as always, a final score out of 10, as I love to do, as I like to do and give you guys. So without further ado, let's get into it. So for some background, as I always like to give before we get into the nitty gritty, if you will, going into this year, 2025 year, there were obviously three major MCU slash Marvel films releasing. Captain America: Brave New World in February, Thunderbolts in May, and of course, here we have Fantastic Four First Steps in July. And I was hyped for all three of them, but by far, without question, the one I was most excited for was Fantastic Four First Steps for multiple reasons, right? Because number one, they had to nail this introduction for these four big characters, right? Marvel's first family into the MCU. And number two, this movie and reportedly its post-credit scene, we're gonna lead right into Avengers Doomsday. So I was hyped for that. So yeah, this was arguably the most important movie set post Endgame since Avengers Endgame, in my opinion, at least for those reasons for the MCU. So yeah, that's just my personal experience and my hype level with it. And before we get into the positives and negatives, I want to say this right off the top. I don't want to keep you guys waiting any bit longer. That didn't make any sense. I don't want to keep you guys waiting at all. Thoughts here. I'm going to be honest. After coming out of the movie last night and into this morning, after sleeping on it, I still feel this way. I was a bit disappointed, if I'm being honest. I was a bit disappointed by F4. I was a bit disappointed by Fantastic Four First Steps. Now, don't get it twisted here. Don't mince my words here. Disappointed does not mean bad, guys. Okay? Disappointed does not mean bad. I want to hammer that home with you guys. Reiterate that, guy, if you will. Disappointed does not mean bad. But relative to the marketing hype for it, my hype for it, and my personal expectations for it in the months, weeks, hell, days even leading up to it, walking into that theater, I was a bit disappointed personally, if I'm being honest. So let's skew more positively to start off. In my first big positive here with this movie is this doesn't necessarily even have to do with the movie. I mean, a bit, but not necessarily the story as a whole. This is just Marvel's recent philosophy. There was literally no homework involved, no homework required with this movie whatsoever, because obviously Fantastic Four, Marvel's first family, introduced in the MCU for the first time. They didn't even mention the Fox movies. They didn't even mention the other three Fantastic Four movies, which I think is a very smart move because I've never seen them, but apparently they were box office flops, and only one, maybe two of them are good. And the most recent entry, Phantom Four Stick, was embarrassingly bad. I know multiple people who couldn't even finish the movie, so I'm not going back to watch that. But what I mean by no homework was required is because I think a lot of fans of the last few years, specifically new Marvel fans, new fans to this universe, have gone, well, I really want to see this movie, but I have to watch this, this, and this first. I have to watch this Disney Plus show to understand. I have to watch this movie, these shows, this, and this. With this movie, Fantastic Four First Step, you can go in blind, you can go in fresh as a new fan. If this is your very first Marvel movie, you're fine. You're in good hands. Which, honestly, that would be kind of weird if this was your first Marvel movie. But if you were a little kid, 7 to 10 years old, let's ballpark it, and if this was your first movie with your parents, you're fine. You're good. You need no prior knowledge. So, right off the bat, that philosophy was really refreshing to see. Again, new fans, I want to see this movie, but I have to watch this, and this first. I have to read this comic. I have to watch this show. I have to watch this movie. I have to watch this weekend. No, there was none of that with this movie. You could go in blind and just enjoy your time with it, have some fun, have your popcorn, and be content. Next, big positive. Pedro Pascal, obviously from The Last of Us, obviously from a handful of other movies. I still have to watch The Last of Us. I've heard he's excellent in that. But him as Reed Richards was really charming and enjoyable to see on screen every time he was on screen. Now, I think he was billed as the lead. And if you really think about it, Vanessa Kirby was the lead here. Actress Vanessa Kirby was the lead here as Sue Storm. But I think that's perfectly fine because I think Sue Storm stole the show. But Pedro Pascal, really enjoyable, really dramatic character. I really liked his certain character quirks and all that. It was really fun. Now, I want to talk about Galactus in a positive light because I have some negative things for sure with this character, which I'll touch on in a few minutes here in a bit here, what have you, if you will. But just at a base level, the idea of Galactus as a villain in this universe was a really intimidating and threatening entity, intimidating and threatening villain in this universe, in this alternate reality timeline, whatever you want to call it, because it's a different Earth, it's a different timeline. So I have issues with how Galactus, was billed as a character, his writing, but surface level, I really enjoyed his introduction in the MCU. He's clearly a threatening and what's the word I'm looking for? Intimidating force. There we go. But also, Silver Surfer. I thought she was excellent in this movie. She is, like, not bar none, she is arguably the best written character and most intriguing character from this entire movie. Yes, even over Reed Richards, even over the other Fantastic Four members. Maybe not Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, but she's right up there. I thought Silver Surfer was awesome awesome in this movie. And that leads me into my next positive. The whole vibe of this movie I really enjoyed. The 60s aesthetic, the 60s period piece it was going for, the trips up into space, the old-timey feel of this movie was really, really powerful, and I really, really enjoyed it. It was a spin and take on the MCU that I personally thought era was very refreshing, and all the scenes in space were very, very good. I love the look and design of all the characters in space. And one that stuck out to me the most, when Johnny Storm goes up to try to calm down Silver Surfer and they explore Silver Surfer's backstory a bit, how she lost her parents, how she lost her people, how she couldn't stand up to Galactus. I thought wonderfully done. This might sound dramatic to say and bold to say right now to some, but that was one of the best and most inspiring scenes I've ever seen in the MCU to date recently, post Endgame specifically. So that was really, really good. The final battle, I had some issues with everything leading up to the final battle, the final moments before the final battle, but the final battle between the Fantastic Four themselves and Galactus was really encouraging. And that ending, man, emotional gut punch where we all thought Sue Storm was dead. Where Reed is really, really going through it, and they're all going through it, and then you see the baby, you see what was his name? I'm blanking on their son's name right now. Oh, Franklin. You see Franklin kind of clapping at the end, like, yeah, she came back to life. Like, that was such an emotional gut punch, and then see her resurrected, if you will. Unfortunately, though, I have a few negatives that I was hoping this movie wouldn't present, but unfortunately it did. So we got to get to the disappointing part. I don't know about you guys, but the chemistry with our main four here, our main characters, not even just excluding Franklin, it was a bit up and down. Honestly, Sue Storm and Reed Richards, specifically a husband and wife, were perfect, but I don't know. Johnny Storm and Ben Grimm, Johnny Storm and the Thing, whatever you want to call him, they kind of took a back seat, especially Johnny Storm. And that gets me into my next negative, and this was the bulk of my disappointment for this movie, unfortunately. This entire story, for the most part, until the final battle, but felt rushed. I talked about Johnny Storm and Ben Grimm taking a backseat, but especially Johnny Storm. They didn't really go into his backstory as the Human Torch. I would have loved to see how he became the Human Torch, how he got to where he is today. I know they had the quick setup 5-minute sequence in the beginning of we all know the story. The Fantastic Four go up into space and yada yada yada, and they all save us, and they come down as superheroes, as superpowered beings, superpowered humans, if you will. But I don't know. I thought that was kind of quick. And I know people have said, well, we don't need an origin story every time. We don't need an origin story with James Gunn's Superman again, which I thought that was very good. We don't need an origin story with this Marvel character. How many times do we have to see the Fantastic Four? I thought Fantastic Four First Steps needed, if anything, should have an origin story. It was this movie, guys, because this was the first, after the other three were complete flops and failures, most recently Fanforstic, I thought this movie needed a deeper origin story. The first 20 to 30 minutes could have been origin story alone, especially Johnny Storm, how he became Human Torch. So this movie felt rushed. I don't want to say it was jumbled, but there was just, everything leading up to the final battle, of course. There was just too much going on. You had this going on over here, this going on. It just kind of was chaotic, I feel like. Again, all the scenes up in space, Galactus, all the villain stuff was perfect, but I don't know, just certain characters, certain plot points could have been developed more. And speaking of Galactus, I mentioned in my positives how at a base level, he's clearly a very intimidating and threatening threat in this universe, but at a deeper level, at a character level, as he was written, Galactus really lacked any sort of backstory or motivation as a villain, like at all, hardly at all, unfortunately. There's no backstory here. There's no motivation. With Thanos, you understand his backstory. With that post-credit scene, he comes in the very first Avengers and goes, lifts up the Infinity Gauntlet with the stones and goes, fine, I'll do it myself. That iconic line. He was set up for years and years. You understand where Killmonger's coming from in the first Black Panther movie. You're like, yeah, this guy's intentions are maybe not the best, but I understand where he's coming from. As a child, lost his father, this and that. Galactus just kind of came out of nowhere. It just kind of felt abrupt. There was no setup really whatsoever, and there was no backstory motivation, so you never really feel for this character. I know you're not supposed to feel for a villain, but it goes back to he was outshined by Silver Surfer by far. She was so much better than him. Silver Surfer was so much better than Galactus in this movie. I just wanted more setup for Galactus as a villain and more backstory, and I wanted to understand his motivation, even a snippet of it. Like, why is he coming to destroy these planets? Why does he want to take over Earth? It's a typical villain trope. I want to take over Earth. Why, though? We never really see where Galactus was before, where Galactus came to be where he is now. And I just thought that was really, really fumbled the bag by Marvel and Kevin Feige, if will, where like Galactus was just, it just felt kind of abrupt. So, yeah. And then before I give my score, I want to talk about the post-credit scene again. I gave you guys a spoiler warning at the very top of this video, very top of this review. So if you're still here, thank you. I appreciate it. But yeah. Obviously, we see Dr. Doom in the post-credit scene. The mother, Sue Storm, goes to get Franklin's books to read him a book, and then she comes back with her power on, and there's freaking Dr. Doom kneeling at the baby and holding the mask. I'm talking about this with my cousin, who's also a big Marvel nerd and pop culture nerd in general, especially Marvel. Talk about this with my cousin just this morning before I hopped on here to record. That post-credit scene felt forced and lazy. They didn't show any of Robert Downey Jr.'s face, any of Dr. Doom's face at all. Maybe they want to keep the mystery, but no voice, no face, no snippet of everything. It was just like kind of a cheesy post-credit scene, like forced, like, oh, here's Dr. Doom. Can't wait to see you in Avengers Doomsday. I thought it was a lazy and poorly constructed post-credit scene, and that really surprised me because Matt Shackman, the director of this film, said, yeah, the Russo brothers came back to basically put together and direct this post-credit scene, so I thought it would be much better. We all knew Dr. Doom was coming, but all he got was a post-credit scene. He could have been the last 5 to 10 minutes of the actual film at the very least. And going into this movie, the actual film was only an hour and 55 minutes. With credits and post-credit scenes and stuff, it was about an hour 40, hour 45 of actual story. So I thought, personally, the shorter runtime for a Marvel movie really, really hurt this film. It was rushed. We needed more exposition. I know people don't always want to see another origin story these days, but these characters are being introduced to this Marvel timeline, this Marvel universe, the one that started in 2008 for the very first time. This isn't Fox's thing anymore. This is Disney through and through, just like Deadpool, just like Wolverine, just like the movie Deadpool and Wolverine. So, final score, I was a bit disappointed. This might be a tad lower than you guys, I'm sure, but I'm going to give it a 7.75 out of 10. Like I said at the top, disappointed does not mean bad, but relative to expectations, I was disappointed personally, in my personal opinion. So I'm going to give Fantastic Four First Steps a score of a 7, final score of a 7.75 out of 10. Let me know down in the comments below. Were you disappointed? Did it exceed your expectations? Was it right where you expected? For upcoming content for this channel, later this week in a few days, I'm going to be doing a fun exercise where I rank every single post Endgame film to determine, have the movies post Endgame since Avengers Endgame really been that bad? Were they all as bad as we really remember? Was the MCU always as consistent as we remember? Does it deserve the hate post Endgame that it's getting? We're going to explore all that later this week with another video on the channel. So I'd love to interact with you guys down in the comments below. What was your favorite Marvel movie this year? We got 3. We're done with all 3. We got Captain America: Brave New World in February. We got Thunderbolts back in May. And then just a few days ago, this July, right now, we got Fantastic Four First Steps. So I was a bit disappointed. Final score, reiterate again, 7.75 out of 10. Look forward to that post-Endgame film ranking later this week. I'd love to interact with you guys in the comments. Thank you for the support as always. Since I've relaunched this channel a few weeks ago. So yeah, it's been a blast, and I'm always looking to grow, always taking suggestions down in the comments below, rankings, reviews, whatever. I will see you guys on the next video later this week. Thank you for the support as always. If you haven't seen the movie yet, I'd still recommend it. Just don't expect to be blown away. I think kind of my ending thesis statement of this is like, I wanted this to be a great movie. Maybe even I would have taken very good, but unfortunately it was just a above average movie for me personally. So thank you for support as always. Have a great day. Bye.